So 2025 was a year, not in a highlight reel soft launch my best life type of way. It's more of like a refining season, the kind that just works quietly. If this is your first time here, what's up? My name's John. Welcome to my corner of the internet. I'm a creative made by the creator, still figuring life out, still drinking overpriced coffee, still asking big questions. And somewhere along the way, 2025 taught me a bunch of lessons I didn't want to forget. So this isn't an I've made it video. It's more of like, here's what actually helped me grow and survive. So without further ado, here are 5 things I've learned in 2025. Let's get into it. Lesson number 1, staying steadfast. Last year, I had the privilege of helping chaperone a group of students to a youth conference themed Steadfast. And this was mostly targeted towards high schoolers and preteens. And honestly, I love events and spaces like this. They tend to stir up something familiar within me. They remind me of my own turning points within my own life, where life felt wide open and uncertain at the same time. But this conference felt different. It took me straight back to who I was at their age, standing at the beginning of becoming, trying to figure life out while the world seemed to move way too fast. Back in high school, our slogan was Intramutanda Constantia, a Latin phrase meaning steadfastness in the midst of change. Or more simply put, remaining constant while everything else is shifting. During this time, my whole world felt like it was changing, and I didn't really fully grasp how much of that idea would still echo in my life years later. Because being steadfast isn't about standing still, it's about finding peace while everything else around me is moving. Isaiah 26:3 says it perfectly. You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast, because they trust in you. That verse reminds me that peace isn't control, it's trust. Watching those students, I was reminded of the pressure I felt at that age, trying to figure out who I was meant to become, and how to stand firm without really knowing how. And if I were to be brutally honest, I still feel some of that pressure today. Life in this season has been a bit shaky. It's been full of change and uncertainty. But just like it did back then, steadfastness hasn't meant having all the answers. It's meant staying rooted, standing on a firm foundation. But even when everything around me shifts, steadfastness looks like choosing obedience. When applause is missing, when results aren't visible yet, or even when faith feels quieter than doubt. And I'm learning to stand in my own beliefs, not just my feelings, and I'm trying to build my life on this foundation that won't waver. And I trust that my future self will thank me for today's faithfulness, the kind that carries me through seasons of uncertainty and change, just like it has in the past. Lesson number 2, setting SMART goals. For a long time, I used to set goals like, I want to glow up, I want to be more social, I want to get into shape, I want to grow more spiritually, and eventually I had to ask myself, what does that actually mean? And at the end of last year, I learned about SMART goals. And it's a framework that gave me language about something I was missing. SMART goals is a structure that helps clarify what I was actually working towards. It's just an acronym meaning specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And once I understood that, things started to click. Specific means I know exactly what I'm doing. Not I want to do better, not I'm trying to grow, because grow how? Instead of read more, I say, I'm reading 10 pages every morning after breakfast. So if someone asks what I'm doing, I don't have to think about it. I actually know what I'm doing. I'm being specific. Next is measurable, meaning I can track it. And if I can't measure it, I'm just guessing. This means pages read, workouts done, hours studied, numbers don't lie, and they help keep me accountable when motivation disappears. Next is achievable, meaning it fits in my real life. Not my fantasy life, not my new year, new me life, my actual schedule, my current energy, my real responsibilities. The goals will stretch me and not set me up to quit by week 2. Relevant means it actually matters. If a goal doesn't connect to who I'm becoming, it won't last. So I ask myself, does this support my values, my calling, or the season I'm in right now? And if the answer is no, procrastination usually follows. And that isn't laziness, it's just misalignment. And finally, time-bound. Everything needs a deadline. With that one, the goal turns to, I'll get it done someday, which usually means it's never going to happen. This framework changed everything for me. Clarity removed the pressure and replaced it with momentum, because I knew what was required. Vague goals inspire intention. Clear goals produce action. So SMART goals aren't about being robotic or boring. They're about turning intention into action and dreams into systems. And lately, I've been designing my goals to fit in within my real life. Not some realized version of it, not some fantasy life. And James Clear says it best in Atomic Habits. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall into the level of your systems. And God honors intention, but systems are what help me sustain it. Lesson number 3, time management and self-respect. That idea of being time-bound led to realization in 2025 that was honestly uncomfortable. When I say I don't have time, what that usually means is this isn't a priority right now. That one stung because time management isn't about being busy. It's about being intentional. It's about choosing what deserves my attention before my phone, before my feed, or whatever my calendar chooses for me. The reality is there are 168 hours in a week. About 56 of them we go to sleep. Work or school takes about another 20 to 40. Chores and commuting, life, admin, basic self-care takes up another 20, 25. That still leaves roughly around 40 to 45 discretionary hours. And those hours, that's where real priorities live. That's where habits form. That's where growth happens. Or doesn't. And I had to accept it. At any given moment, I'm usually doing what I most want to be doing. That doesn't mean it's always been the best choice, but it's an honest one, saying I don't have time. I feel safer than admitting that I'm choosing a different priority right now. And that honesty started showing up in very practical ways, especially socially, when I had to get into comfortable situations, setting boundaries with friends. And sometimes that meant saying no. And other times it meant not going out or leaving early because I had church the next day or because I needed energy to work out and actually showing up for my well-being instead of just going through the motions. Not because I don't value friendships, because I do. Because I value the life I'm trying to build. And if my friends are watching right now, I love you guys. But burning myself out socially just to say yes wasn't serving anyone. Letting that go hurt. But I had to realize that some things, even if they are good things, can't be first in every season. And right now, my priorities are my faith, my family, my friends, and my education. And sometimes one comes before the other. And that doesn't mean it's forever. It just means for this season. And that matters because seasons change. Discipline isn't quitting. It's knowing when to pause. It's the early morning runs, long gym sessions, race goals, late night with friends. They're not gone. They're just waiting for their turn. Another shifts that can be helped by narrowing focus. Instead of trying to everything in one day, I start asking myself, what's one thing today that actually matters? One meaningful task, one intentional block of time, and progress compounds when I stop scattering my attention. I've also learned to give myself permission. At the end of the day, satisfied, not lazy, not complacent, just content. Beating myself up just doesn't really serve me. It just steals my peace. So I'm learning to treat my time like a resource, not just an afterthought, protecting it, scheduling what matters, and saying no when needed. And I align my hours with the life and peace that I'm trying to build. Lesson number 4, stop oversharing. Everyone is not your people. So this one took me a while to learn, and I had to accept that not everyone deserves access to my pain, my plans, or my progress. And that isn't bitterness, it's wisdom. We live in a culture that confuses being open with being exposed. Social media rewards vulnerability on demand, and it subtly teaches me that I'm not sharing, posting, or explaining myself. I must be fake or guarded. But the truth is, some things need privacy to grow. Not everything in life is meant for public consumption, especially when still fragile, unfinished, or still becoming. I've learned this the hard way, and I realized that when I share too early or too widely, I often walked away feeling misunderstood, discouraged, or second-guessing myself. And sometimes what I learned is that some people listen to support, some people listen to compare, and some people listen to judge. And wisdom for me is knowing the difference. Not everyone asking questions is rooting for me. And just because someone says something with a smile wants the best for me. And not everyone deserves front row access to my inner life just because they're nearby. I've learned there's a difference between proximity and trust. Oversharing isn't always confidence. Sometimes it's loneliness. Sometimes it's insecurity. But healing doesn't require a public post. Growth doesn't need an audience, and progress doesn't need commentary while it's still happening. Even scripture talks about moving quietly, about letting fruit speak for itself. There's something powerful about allowing God and time to work within me without interference. When I protect what is sacred, it matures with less pressure and with more clarity. There's a quote that stayed with me. It says, "A calm mind and a fit body and a house full of love, these things cannot be bought. They must be earned, and they're earned slowly, quietly, and faithfully." I've learned that identity isn't built through announcements, it's built through consistency. What I do when no one's watching, applauding, or reacting. Oversharing can actually delay growth because it invites opinions before we've even finished, forming convictions, or etc. This doesn't mean isolating myself, it means choosing my circle with intentionality. A few safe people, a few wise voices, people who have proven they can hold my story with care. So what does this look like for me right now? I want to protect my vulnerability. I share it with those who have earned my trust, and not just those who have access to me. I let my story unfold without rushing into it, and I invest daily in who I am becoming, and not just what I'm producing. Some chapters of my life are meant to be written in private, so they can be lived in a public setting with strength later. Lesson number 5, quiet confidence. Something I've been thinking about a lot lately is about quiet confidence. Not the kind that is loud, not the kind that needs to be seen, announced, or validated, but it's the kind that is steady, that's grounded or secure, even when no one's paying attention. I've noticed that people who leave the strongest impression in me are the ones who dominate the room. They're calm, they're thoughtful, they're present. They don't rush to speak, they don't interrupt, they don't feel the need to explain why they matter. But somehow I notice them anyway. This has been in my mind because someone who I knew in my postgrad, he was one of my professors. And he was one of the more seasoned professors. He was working part-time, semi-retired, and he was previously a business owner. And he was super kind, approachable, and always respectful. Just a genuinely humble guy. The entire time I was in school, I had no idea of what he had accomplished in his career, and he never talked about himself. He never flexed. He never dropped names. To me, he was just a great professor who cared deeply about his students. And after I graduated, I struggled to land my first job, and there was this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity came up. It was a junior position in my field. I did the interview, and I felt okay about it. Not amazing, not terrible. And what I didn't know was that the company knew my school and personally reached out to my professor to ask about me. And they did this without me asking, and they did this without me even knowing. And my professor went out of his way to stand up for me, and he gave me a strong recommendation. And that recommendation helped me get my first job out of school. And months later, I was casually walking around with my boss, and he mentioned something unexpected. He told me that he and my professor were actually really good friends when they were younger. And then he started listing my professor's accomplishments, his businesses, his leadership, his philanthropic work across the city. And that's when everything around me clicked. This whole time, I had no idea who my professor really was, or at least in the professional world. To make a long story short, he was big time. He's the kind of accomplished person that would easily justify arrogance. But yet, he carried himself with humility, kindness, and quiet confidence. No ego, no spotlight, just character. That's the kind of confidence that lasts. It's rooted in self-respect, not validation. It doesn't fade when the clapping stops. It doesn't feel threatened when somebody louder walks in. It's anchored in something deeper, integrity. There's something very poetic about this kind of posture, letting your life speak louder than your words, and not needing to prove yourself, just showing up consistently, doing good quietly, and lifting up others, especially when they need it most. In a world that rewards noise, quiet confidence stands out, and when I meet someone who carries it, I don't forget them. It's the kind of presence I want to build within my own life. So yeah, 2025 didn't make me perfect, but it made me more grounded, more intentional, more secure in who I am becoming. Even in seasons that feel slow, even when I feel unseen, even when I wonder if everything really matters, I just trust that it does. So I'm keeping at it, standing firm, staying steady. Grace and peace. I'll see you next time.